Win a Pageant, episode 107. Beauty, Truth, and Grace is your step-by-step pageant training manual. Get your copy of this Amazon best-selling book at winapageant.com/book. Hey girl, welcome to the Win a Pageant podcast. I'm your host, Alycia Darby. Miss USA 2017 was this past Sunday. Did you get a chance to watch it? The women that competed in this pageant are so stinking prepared. They're extremely polished. So there is so much that you can learn from just simply watching the pageant itself. So in today's episode, I'm going to share with you the top 7 lessons that I learned from this year's pageant. But first, I wanted to share with you some love. I love starting everything with love. And I wanted to share this beautiful note that I got from Rita. She's one of my clients. And this is what she wrote about her experience with the #1 best-selling book, Beauty, Truth, and Grace. And she writes, Alicia's book is phenomenal. She breaks down everything so anyone can understand how to excel in pageantry. Her lessons are also connected to her podcast, so you can get even more details on what she's talking about. That is right, Rita. Thank you so much for this glowing review and for your engagement on the Win a Pageant podcast. I so appreciate that. And hey, if you haven't written a review yet for the Beauty, Truth, and Grace book, I would love for you to take a look at that. You can at winapageant.com/book. That's where you can get the book and even leave a customer review on Amazon. Now, let's dive into these lessons from Miss USA 2017. Now, if you had the opportunity to watch the pageant from the very beginning, or you may have even been following them on social media or the Miss USA app, then you will absolutely know what I'm talking about when I say how wildly successful each one of the state title holders really is. And the lesson to gather from this is that success comes first, then comes the pageant title. I think oftentimes we can be somewhat confused, or we can kind of have the wrong impression that whenever you win the title, that's when you become successful. And actually, that's backwards. In fact, every winner of the pageant has already won in her life in many other areas, whether it's career or in the nonprofit organization that she started or involved in, even in education. So the winners that were arriving at the Miss USA pageants, they had already won their state title and they were coming to Miss USA. They were already successful lawyers and scientists and just high achievers in life. So the lesson is success comes first, then the title. So here's how I want you to apply this to your life. I want you to live your very best life right now. Don't wait for that title to be the thing that makes you, I want you to start pursuing your dream now. Pursue the career that you want right now. Pursue your desires today. Start now. You know that you are designed for something unbelievably amazing. Really, really, you are. So do not wait to be great. Start employing that now. And then when it comes time to arrive on the pageant stage, others will recognize that greatness in you. And then you will be honored with the pageant title. But success comes first. Lesson number 2. God's plan is the best plan. I love when Miss South Carolina came off of the stage after evening gown. She was pulled aside by Ashley Graham backstage for a very quick interview, like 30 seconds. And what I know is that whatever you are full of comes out whenever you are kind of bumped, bumped off your axis. And she was just announced that she was moving forward. And so she's all excited and, thrilled for this next step. And so she's coming off of stage and they asked her Ashley asked her, "Where are you going?" And I think that the host was probably expecting her to say, "Oh, I'm going to go backstage and we have such a quick change," and that type of thing. But because this woman is such a powerhouse, this was her response. She actually said, "Wherever God would like me to go." wherever God wants me to, she said. And I thought, oh my goodness, this girl is like mature beyond her years. The fact that she realizes that God is our source and that he's going to direct your steps when you believe in him, that was just so beautiful that she had full smiles. It was just so happy. And it wasn't about, oh, well, I'm going to become Miss USA or something. It was just like, hey, I'm going to do exactly what God has for me next. I'm just going to step into his plan. So the lesson is God's plan is the best plan. The way I want you to apply it is to first pursue what God wants. Pursue what he knows is the best thing for you. And I promise you, he is going to take you on an adventure of a lifetime. Trust in him first. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all of your ways, acknowledge him. And Miss South Carolina did a beautiful job of that. Lesson number 3. Now, this is where I'm going to get into a little bit of the brass tacks of actual pageant winning. So you probably heard the top 5 question, and this is what you need to know. The lesson is you got to share your story, not just any story, not a concept, okay? If you go back and listen to the top 5 questions, or maybe this is something that you caught immediately as you were watching the pageant the first time around, but each of the women that answers the top 5 question does a beautiful job. Each one of them is extremely well spoken. They do a lovely job of conveying their confidence. The thing that made New Jersey and especially DC stand out was the fact that they were not speaking in general terms, giving an answer that is conceptual. They gave answers that were specific to them as humans. They applied their own life experience and how they viewed the world to their answer. Now, what's beautiful about this is in a pageant, we really are more concerned as a judge. The judges are really more concerned with who you are as a human and not so much about the concepts of how you feel about the world. Although those are very important, really they are selecting a specific person that can serve as a brand ambassador. And when you are on stage representing your state and representing yourself as a human to the world on the stage of Miss USA, the one thing you need to communicate is you. You are the brand ambassador for you. So imagine if these same top 5 women were given a product, for example, that they were to represent all year, like, let's say, a pageant, like the Miss USA pageant, and all they had to do, their number one job was to represent that pageant, then you would hope that if they got asked a question, they would be able to, in some way, convey that one thing. New Jersey did an okay job of this. And of course, DC just knocked it out of the park. That is why I believe that she won, because she did this. I'm going to explain later. She did this again in the future as well. So your takeaway here for lesson number 3, share your story. Your goal, your action step of how you can apply this is to look for how your unique identity helps you to convey your message. So of course you have an opinion and you have an idea of a concept, but you still have to use your unique identity, like what makes you stand out from the others. And it could just be, your circumstances. Like DC just talked about the fact that she had a job. Like she was like, oh yeah, her job, and that she has healthcare. And so she used that and just wove it in somehow to convey her opinion. Look for the unique ways that your identity can be used to help convey your message. Okay, lesson number 4. Your personality is your selling power, okay? So what I love about DC, did you notice this? She seemed to clap for everyone in every moment, including herself. It was so sweet. And it may have been accidental because she was just like, had abundant joy. And so it was maybe just kind of coming out in that way. But it was beautiful and it wasn't distracting at all. I was just, of course, taking notice of her. And anyway, I thought that was awesome. But then particularly in the last question, in the top 3 question, she was the first to be asked the same question. So all of the top 3 were asked the same question. The other 2 are wearing headphones. She was called first. And what the host did not put the microphone to her mouth. And so instead of like making it awkward or something, she asked specifically to the host, she said, do I get a microphone? And she whispered it as if to say like, am I missing something here? Or is maybe this the host's fault? Like she was kind of cluing her in on it in a loving way, but then giggled about it and was real sweet about it, and it didn't bother her at all, right? So it didn't throw her off. Oh, if she wouldn't have won, I don't think she's the type of person that would have said, oh, well, the host didn't give me, it threw me off because the host didn't give me the microphone. Like, no, she just wove her personality into that, and it made you feel that much more endeared to her. And then in her answer, did you catch this? Any speech coach would have been probably irritated to death that her answer included, like. I think that was her exact quote, like. But again, human characteristics are what endear us to people that are on a pedestal like this. And she was being very real in her answer. And you could tell that that is what she would say if she were talking with a coworker or something. And the way that she conveyed it was just very, very authentic and very unique. And that is how she sold who she is. Because the other women, while they also gave really, really great answers, their personality wasn't able to shine in the same way as hers was. So how do you apply this to you? The lesson is your personality is your selling power. How do you apply it? Just be authentically human. Be human. Make mistakes, and it's okay. And don't judge yourself for them, right? Ask questions when it's obvious that a question needs asked, like, do I get a microphone? Or she could have even said, oh, could I please have the mic? And then Julia would have also reacted to that, But just being authentically human is so important for people to trust you and feel connected to you. Okay, lesson number 5. Now, this is one that most women make a mistake on. And on the stage of Miss USA, this is a like pageant career killing mistake. So this is why it's so important, why we got to cover it today. So this is lesson number 5, that you have got to step into the role of Miss USA before you even step foot on that stage. In the top 3 question, which means only 3 of these girls, one of them is going to win. There's only 1 in 3. The chances are pretty darn good here, okay? Only one of them, and it was the winner, Miss DC, said anything about her job title as Miss USA. Did you notice that? The other 2 did not even mention Miss USA. They spoke lovely. They did a really great job. They were really beautiful. They enunciated their words and everything, but they did not talk about them in the role of Miss USA. Like, I'm actually surprised by that, because at that level, women are typically so well in tune with the idea of media interviews and the need to speak on the number one thing. Like when you're a host and when you're doing media, representing a brand or doing media interviews, then you've got one thing to convey. And for them that night, the one thing to convey was you had to you had to get the judges to visualize you in the role as Miss USA. And DC was the only one that said, as Miss USA, ... So if you're listening to this podcast right now and you want to be a title holder, you have got to say, as Miss so-and-so, whatever yours is, fill in the blank. You've got to help your judges visualize you as the title holder. So the action step, how do you apply stepping into the role as that title holder? How do you apply that to your competition? Well, you've got to always tie your answer back to the role of the title holder. So whatever your answer may be, and it's likely going to be somewhat conceptual, and then it's going to have a story or some element of you, but then you've got to tie it back to the role of the title holder. And that, in that top 3 question, is the place to do it. Okay, lesson number 6. At the end of the pageant, this was one of the most beautiful moments that I remember from a crowning moment. At the end of the pageant, her crown, when it was placed on her head, and if you saw this pageant, she has a beautiful head of hair. This woman's got curls like crazy and full volume, and it was just very large, okay? It was stunningly gorgeous, and when the crown was placed on her head, it was just meant to be. Like, you could just tell this crown was in its rightful place on this woman's head, and it kept falling off. It kept like teetering off to the side and off to the other side. And even though you knew it was designed to be on her beautiful head of hair, it kept tipping around. But what the thing was that I loved the most about this moment is that when all of the other girls came rushing around her, she was so overwhelmed with joy. It took all of these other wonderful women to straighten her crown. The lesson here is that we all need women in our lives to help straighten our crowns. I'm getting emotional right now because in our lives, life is about relationship. And no matter where you stand, even if you are at the top of your game, even if you beat out over 50 contestants for your national pageant, you still need to surround yourself with women that are willing to stand by you and straighten your crown. The action step of how you apply it is twofold. Number one, I want you to be the person that humbles yourself so others want to be around you to straighten your crown. I know for a fact that if this woman was real nasty backstage, or if these girls did not have, if they didn't feel like she was truly deserving of this win and like they really were supporting her, it would have been a lot harder for them to straighten the crown, right? They would have been like a little, they would have hung back or maybe faked it or whatever. But they were actively, in fact, I would encourage you to go on YouTube and watch the final crowning moment in this scene as the credits are rolling. You will just see the love that is being shared. So step one is be humble even as you rise to the top, because you will still need those people around you. And application number two, be the first one to straighten someone else's crown. Be the first one that steps in to help your fellow sisters. Guys, we are all in this world, on this planet, to serve one another in an incredible way. And the more that you do that, the closer your bonds will become, and you will find yourself surrounded by just incredible people and helping one another to the top. Lesson number 7. Now, this is sort of the shadow side of a rise to the top. In anywhere that you are in the world, you will have some that are for you and some that are against you, okay? So if you only were to ever know 10 people on this planet, and 5 of them were for you and 5 of them were against you, you'd say, okay, well, this really stinks that there's 5 people against me, but there's still 5 people for me, so okay, you'd feel it. But imagine if you knew 500 people, and half of them were for you and half are against you. Well, now all of a sudden, as Miss USA, you are catapulted to the top of this, where now billions of people all around the world are watching you. Some of them will be for you, and some of them will be against you. The lesson that you need to remember, and the thing that I think will carry this young woman through her incredible reign, is that other people's negativity is not about you. It is about them. When a person is hurt, that is where they're hurt. When they hurt other people, that's where it comes from. You've probably heard that phrase, hurting people hurt people. And that's true. When we are carrying bitterness or unforgiveness or something, that's typically where our arrows of hurting others come from. But it's not about the person that's being directed to, okay? You've probably also heard the saying about hate, like hate isn't about the hated, it's about the hater. And that same kind of concept, right? So after winning the title, and even prior to winning the title, when she gave her answer, when Miss DC gave her answer, there suddenly became all this controversy around the fact that about her top 5 answer, which doesn't honestly even matter. Like, it's not like she is going to be running for president right this year. Like, it's not like she's going to be necessarily the one like signing bills and stuff. So we don't need to be freaking out about her opinion, which it is just her opinion. But what's important to recognize is that when you are grounded in the truth, and the only truth, by the way, is what God says about you. It's what God says you are and who God says that you are to become. That is truly the only truth. So when you are in the limelight in this way, or in any way really, you will hear negativity from other people. And I need you to remember that that isn't about you. That's about them. Like, they're carrying something, they're having a bad day, they're going through something or another that's putting them in this place where they want to lunge at you and launch arrows. Like, good grief, who wants to live that kind of life, right? sad for them and shame on them. But again, it's not about you. It's not what you did. Okay. It's not who you are. If you are simply grounded in the truth of who God says you are, you can't go wrong with that. So the lesson is other people's negativity is about them. It ain't about you. And the way that you can apply this is to ground yourself in your truth. Stay true to who you know God has created you to be. And then it's so easy to like let other people's hatred arrows and all this negative realm that people are trying to come at you with just bounce off of you, you know? And yeah, it might attempt to kind of leave a little bruise because, you know, people are trying to hurt you. So it may hurt, but Miss DC throughout this year, now Miss USA, is going to have an incredible year because this isn't going to stop her, okay? I know that for a fact because I loved when the two of them were holding hands at the very end, the first runner-up and Miss USA, then Miss DC. When her name was called, she was saying a prayer. Did you notice that? Her eyes were closed and she was just in an introspective place. That is such a beautiful place to be, and it helps ensure that you are grounded in the truth of who God says that you are. And that, my dear, is how you win a pageant. I would love to hear what you learned from the Miss USA pageant. Of course, there is so much that we can learn from just watching other people who are really performing at a very high level. When you watch them, you can just gain so much inspiration and so much knowledge from them. So if you have a great lesson, I would love to hear from you. The best place to reach out is on Instagram. You can just leave a comment on any of my images there. Find me at Win a Pageant. That's really an awesome place because we can connect and have some conversations there. I would love to hear your lessons. So let me know what you thought about the pageant and what you learned. Thank you again for faithfully listening to the Win a Pageant podcast every Wednesday. If you are so moved, please head over to iTunes to leave a rating and review for the Win a Pageant podcast. That helps us get really incredible guests and bring more and more information to you, like these trainings. Please leave a comment for me there too on what topics that you would love to hear about on our weekly podcast. You can get straight to it by going to winapageant.com/iTunes. Thank you so much for listening, lady, and I will see you next week on Win a Pageant Wednesday. Hey there, I'm Alycia Darby, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching that last video. If you totally loved it and got something from it, would you just click subscribe right here to subscribe to our YouTube channel? Hey, I am here for you, and I've got so many more trainings and videos for you. In fact, this one would be a really great one to watch next. Or if that topic doesn't interest you, then try this one. It's my most recent video training. So I think both of these would be really great for you. Thank you again so much for subscribing. I am honored to be your coach. I'll see you again soon.